In 363 AD, priests from Koinobi, Egypt, released 42 mystery books, and one released unofficially, the 43rd, was the most jealously guarded, for it contained the teachings of their most prominent initiate, Jehosuah ben Nazaria, entitled Maggia Jesu Christi. The other 36 of these books from the Koinobi priesthood predate the Great Flood, and 6 contain the knowledge of Hermes, called the Hermetic Wisdom. Books that form the future steps, sigils, symbols, and myths of the Koinobi priesthood of Egypt, which established the secret Freemasonry knowledge. As you will come to see, all of this secret knowledge has been guarded by the Freemasons, as jealously as the priesthoods that Jehosuah so famously rebuked. But not just the Judean priesthoods, also the Egyptian and Greek priesthoods of his day. Jehosuah not only bested them all in his mastery of the secret knowledge, but is their greatest rebel to date. He desired to lift the veil of their secrecy and make the secret priesthood knowledge public, only for the Freemason Brotherhood to collect and cloak in secrecy once again, like the new priesthood. This is the secret knowledge Jehosuah desired to reveal, and the Masonry framework. The man we call Jesus Christ, according to the Jewish version of his birth, recorded in the Sefer Toldos Jeshu, in the following words, was born to Mary, having become the mother of a son named Jehosuah ben Nazaria. As a boy growing up, she entrusted him to the care of the Rabbi Elhanan, for Jehosuah was well gifted with spirit and understanding, and the child progressed in knowledge. Rabbi Jehosuah ben Berechiah, of the same first name but no actual familial connection, continued the education of Jehosuah after Elhanan, and initiated him in the secret knowledge of the Kabbalah. When initiated, Jehosuah was said to be knowledgeable in the first degree, and called a 1-year-old a babe, or lamb, though now an adolescent. But the king, Jannaeus, the second king of the Hasmonean dynasty, who ruled over an expanding kingdom of Judea from 103 to 76 BCE, having given orders to slay all the initiates of the first degree, or 1-year-old babes, Rabbi Berechiah fled to Alexandria in Egypt, taking the Nazarene boy with him. An incident during the Feast of Tabernacles was a major factor leading up to the Judean Civil War. It is recorded that during the Jewish holiday Sukkot, King Alexander Jannaeus, while officiating as the high priest at the temple in Jerusalem, demonstrated his displeasure against the Pharisees, whom included the Nazarenes, by refusing to perform the water libation ceremony properly. Instead of pouring it on the altar, he poured it on his feet. The crowd responded with shock at his mockery and showed their displeasure by pelting him with yellow lemons used in their rituals. They made the situation worse by insulting him. They called him a descendant of a captive woman and unsuitable to hold office and to sacrifice. Outraged, he set out to kill 6,000 people. While in exile in Alexandria, Egypt, Jehosuah passed his early youth with the Koinobi, known as the home to the secret Pythagorean school and Egyptian roots of modern Freemasonry. They were received in the house of a rich and learned lady, which is Egypt personified. The young Nazarene Jehosuah found her beautiful, without a defect in her eyes, and declared so to his master, Rabbi Berechiah. Upon learning this, his master became so angry that his pupil should find in the Mosaic land of bondage anything good that he cursed him and drove the young man from his presence. Then follow a series of adventures told in allegorical language and retold and represented in the first 33 cards of the tarot, during which time Jehosuah supplemented his knowledge of the Jewish Kabbalah with the additional acquisition of the secret wisdom of Egypt. Having been trained in the exoteric, meaning public, rites, symbols, and rituals of the Kabbalah since childhood, Jehosuah learned the esoteric, meaning secret, mysteries lying concealed in the Jewish Kabbalah after getting initiated in the Greek mysteries of Ophis at the Temple of Osiris as practiced by the Koinobi priesthood. The Greek Ophis is represented as the Egyptian Uraeus, which are the one and same caduceus staffs of Isis, Osiris, and Thoth, who united are this hieroglyphic. Is translated by the letters PTR, pronounced the Petra, called the Eye of Horus, and form the Egyptian Trinity. Ophis, or Uraeus, appears as two serpents standing erect on their own tails with the lion's head crowned and radiating, and bearing on the point of each ray one of the celestial spheres, or chakras, the planetary counterparts within the human body. And the astronomical correspondences of Eucus, the snake handler, Ophis's counterpart in the heavens. The sun passes through this constellation on the days between November 30th through December 17th. And if your birthday falls in these dates, you are in Ophiution and are meant to sublimate or handle your inner serpent in this life. When the persecution of King Alexander Jannaeus ceased, Rabbi Parachiah and Jehosuah returned to Judea. All credible and non-religious commentators have agreed that a literal massacre of young children is nowhere mentioned in history, and that moreover, an occurrence like that would have made such a bloody page in the Roman annals that the record of it would have been preserved for us by every author of the day since then. Herod himself was subject to the Roman law, and undoubtedly he would have paid the penalty of such monstrous crime with his own life. Such would be the judgment of the noble Roman Empire our civilization, so esteems in high regard. Right? But on the other hand, we have not the slightest trace of this fabled massacre of literal one-year-old children under Herod in history. But of the one-year-old babe initiates, or lambs, of the mystery schools under King Jannaeus, and the Jewish civil wars meant to form a Jewish state by slaying initiates of mystery schools? Most certainly. The real grievances against Jehosuah start in Egypt and are two in number. First, that he had discovered the great mysteries of the Osiris temple, where the mysteries of the Greek Pythagorean schools were blended with the Egyptian mysteries of Osiris, by having been initiated in Koinobi, Egypt. And second, that he had profaned them by exposing them to the public, or the vulgar, or profaned, who misunderstood and disfigured them. This is what they say. There exists in the sanctuary of the living God a cubical stone on which are sculptured the holy characters. The gates of the temple were never lost sight of, and the door of the sanctuary opened but once a year, to admit the high priest alone. This stone is watched by two lions of gold who roar as soon as it is approached. But Jehosuah, who had learned in Egypt the great secrets at the Ophite initiation, forged for himself invisible keys, and thus was able to penetrate the sanctuary unseen. Unable to displace the cubical stone of the sanctuary, Jehosuah copied the characters on the cubical stone and hid them in his thigh, after which, emerging from the temple, he went abroad and fabricated one of clay, which he showed to the Chaldean nations, and passed it off for the true cubical stone of Israel, personified by Saturn, in the heavens, upon whose pole is a six-sided hexagon, from which a 3D cube can be rendered, and is the Islamic black cube in Mecca, from which is derived the six-pointed star of David, the Buddhist spirals of peace, the cross, and so on. And Saturn was the head of the original pagan Jewish pantheon, called Israel, because all Jews are Kabbalists, but not all Kabbalists are Jews, as we will see, in the case of the Nazarene sect of Jehosuah. The combination of the cubical stone etched with the holy characters gave the explanation of the attributes and powers of the incommunicable name, and Jehosuah began astounding people with his miracles. The dead were raised at his command, the leprous and the insane were healed. Jehosuah also wrote books concerning magic, which he delivered to John. He wrote a work called Maggia Jesu Christi, which concerned itself with the serpent, Ophite key of Osiris. He forced the stones which lay buried for ages to rise to the surface until they formed a mountain with a cave enclosed, from whose interior on the mountain top he preached his Sermon on the Mount. Jehosuah said, "Upon this Petra I will build my church, and the gates and the rulers of Hades shall not prevail against it." Meaning by Petra, the rock temple, literally and metaphorically. It was a literal rock temple, or cave in a mountain which he propped up using the magical cubical stone, from which he preached his Sermon on the Mount, though not out in the open, but from inside and behind a curtain, as will be shown. It's just as Pythagoras had done when instructing Socrates. It was also this cave or Petra rock temple. His dead body was entombed, and 3 days later the site of Jehoshua's resurrection. But more on that later. In Egypt, Petra is represented by these 3 letters, PTR, translated from a group of hieroglyphics on a stela, which is this sign, which is the mystical counterpart to the letters and the word Petra, meaning to show, or the Eye of Horus. And this eye is only open through the trinity of Osiris, Isis, and Thoth, whose staff is the serpent Caduceus. The Koinobi mystery school, which blended the Greek Ophite serpent key with the Egyptian Eye of Horus, discovered it was all a medical allegory for the exact shape and representation of the inner claustrum of the brain, which houses the pineal gland, and how to open and activate this pineal gland. Upon performing autopsies on their departed members, who religiously devoted their bodies to the science of pineal gland activation even in death, discovered that the activated pineal gland turned from a gray bony lump to a green pearlescent micro-sized pine cone that glistened like a crystal, or the emerald tablet of thought. And the activation of this emerald gland was found in the very tip of the spine, hidden deep in the region of the coccyx, which is actually below the start of the caduceus staff. It is the home of the original seed, or the first cell before mitosis, which is never killed or destroyed for as long as the body lives, and is thus called the original essence, or by the Greeks, the blood of Christos, and is shaped like this, a vessel, a grail, or the Holy Grail. The essence entrapped in the first seed must travel in a serpentine crawl up the spine like a snake, which is essentially the blood of Christ, which is born from the serpent seed, which must snake its way up the 33 vertebrae of the spine, which bears upon its column the points of each ray of the caduceus rays, or chakras, which are the 7 inner fires that release the smoke of old energies through the chimney of the spine. When Thought's emerald tablet is activated by the energy released from the Holy Grail, or serpent seed, one blends their humanity with the divine, capable of great things, and, though to commoners they'd be called magic, miracles, or heresy, to the learned, like Jehosuah, it was merely science. All of which are the myths, legends, and cornerstones to the knowledge and wisdom of Freemasonry, summed up as simply the serpent science. And this is the ineffable name, the signet of the living God, otherwise called the Tetragrammaton, which Jehoshua discovered became unlocked, and all the occult natures and forces of God were revealed with the Ophite serpent key. And why it was the forbidden fruit. Yet, he did not just eat from it. Jehoshua set out to share this forbidden fruit, feed others from it, and thereby give them the knowledge and free them, because knowledge is power. And no truer knowledge exists than knowing God, and knowing God is already in oneself, saves oneself, It is the true salvation. It is the greatest wisdom, called serpent wisdom, which alludes to Jehoshua's favorite and often repeated saying, "Be ye wise as serpents." In the next of Occult Secrets Revealed, we will explore exactly which God Jehoshua was speaking about, the Jehovistic Adonai, or the serpent and the serpent science. We will also continue our exploration of the life story and knowledge of Jehoshua ben Nazaria and his actual and factual resurrection and how he did it using the Jesus Christ, or the forbidden fruit, and what this means for you and how you can use this knowledge of Jehoshua ben Nazaria to manifest anything that you desire in your life. And until next time, trust and believe that it is okay to be you, the most beautiful you there ever was, there is, and that there ever will be, because you are not a story that can be told twice, and there will never again be a stage for you to perform but this one, right here, right now. So be you, the most beautiful you.